Yep. All right. So welcome everybody. We're really glad you're here. We are joined by the wonderful team at CLI Engage. And of course, this is the meet and greet. So I'm going to go over just a tiny agenda that we have here coming up for you. We'll just do some brief introductions from the TEA support team. I am Natalie Flores and joined by Scott Bodnar, who's asking you questions about the foods that you eat. And we're joined by the CLI Engage team, which consists of Jennifer, Katie, Mike, Colleen, Sarah, and I believe a few others too. So they are also going to support us in monitoring any questions you have. While you see that we do have a Q&A section at the end, we're going to give that about 15 minutes. So starting around 3:45. Just know that if a question comes up, you're more than welcome to drop it into the chat. We're going to be hearing some testimonials from district presenters, New Caney, Grand Prairie, La Jolla, Goose Creek, Consolidated. I'm going to say, I don't know how to say this one. It's either Tomball or Tomball, Wichita Falls and Dallas. So we'll be hearing some testimonials throughout from them. And we encourage you to stay in touch. If you have any follow-up questions whatsoever, you can always visit our website, Early Childhood Education, or I'm sorry, you can always email us at earlychildhoodeducation@tea.texas.gov. We do have a special website just dedicated to everything assessments for pre-K to second grade. And we'll drop those links in the chat for you as well. You can visit CLI Engage. So we have TXKEA.org and CLIengage.org. And I'm going to go ahead and just review a couple of norms you've noticed by now that you're going to remain muted just so that it's easier for everyone. Submit your questions in that comment section. Your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation live, but of course, if you have something that pops up, the CLI team may be able to answer it directly to you. And this is a recorded event and the FAQs will be available on our website. So whatever questions you have, you put them in the comments section. We're going to aggregate them and put them up on a nice FAQ along with the recorded session. So in case any of your friends couldn't make it, they can participate in that way as well. So I'm going to stop screen sharing with that. And there we go. Send it on over to the CLI team. And they can go ahead and start screen sharing.
Okay. Hi, I'm Colleen Allen, and I'm part of the CLI team, and I'm going to be presenting today on TXKEA. We're pleased to present TXKEA, a comprehensive, I like to do alliterations, comprehensive, customizable, convenient, continuous, compatible, and of course, cost-effective assessment system for kindergarten teachers. We started on next slide. There we go. Thank you. We started TXKEA as a result of a Department of Education grant that was awarded to TEA, and then they collaborated and partnered with us to develop the TXKEA with 5 years of intensive research with scaling studies all across the state of Texas. And we developed and validated this school readiness screener that could be reliably administered by kindergarten teachers in Texas. And we took it out on the road and we showed everybody what it was, and teachers were so excited about it. They said, I want this as a progress monitoring tool. We secured some additional foundation funding. And in that second year, we were already able to develop a progress monitoring tool. So now it became a tool that teachers regularly used in their classrooms to help them design appropriate learning opportunities. Okay. CLI Engage, Children's Learning Institute, the platform is called Engage. It houses TXKEA, and it's kind of organized in a way you might consider under two main components. You have the professional development resources and you have the data tools. And so as you can see on the screen, we have a very, very continuous improvement model on a platform so that you could look under the data tools. So you can not only do student assessment, you can also do, there's teacher observation tools.
Excuse me, Colleen.
Yes.
My apologies for interrupting you. I think we're having some sound quality issues. Maybe
Okay.
move a little closer, and it sounds muffled a bit.
Okay, thanks, Liz.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear
That
me
is
better?
much better. Yes.
I switched out, I guess it was on a different audio. So I hope that you heard how excited teachers were about when we first introduced this as a screening tool along with the collaboration, and then developed into a progress monitoring tool at the request of teachers. One of the things we really do well is work with our users, and our feedback becomes what we develop. What I was saying here is that we are a continuous improvement tool platform. And so not only do we have the progress monitoring tools, which are part of the data tools, we offer both student assessment and teacher observation tools, but we also are a continuous improvement so that there's a feedback loop. So what you assess, you can plan teacher professional development. So there's online certificate courses. There's this complete circle activity collection, which is your intervention tools, that's your intervention activities that help support what to do after you do assessment. We have this wonderful collection of family resources that are more than just your family engagement, because they include planned trainings that you can do for open houses, all the PowerPoints, all the materials, all the resources. It's an incredible family engagement collection. And then, of course, we also have infant and toddler resources. We're birth to 8. So on the next slide, you can see that TXKEA, as I mentioned in the beginning, I was using those little alliteration, but it's comprehensive, multi-dimensional progress monitoring tool. It's not just language and literacy. It also is extremely holistic in that it includes all language, literacy, STEM, academic motor skills. You'll see a list here in a moment, and in particular, social and emotional, because we know that that's an important part of a child's kindergarten development. It's in English and Spanish, and it allows for adaptations for children with disabilities. It was designed to inform instruction. That's what assessment should be for, right? And it supports the House Bill 3 reading academies. It has a web-based reporting system, so the reports are right there on the page in the student view screen, so you can make effective use of the results immediately. It includes teacher-administered, child-facing, or child-paced assessments, so they're child self-directed, and then observation tools and teacher surveys that they put together to collect all of this data. There's automatic uploads into the Texas TEA's Early Childhood Development System, ECDS, and it's developed for different devices. So it can be used on including laptops and tablets. It was developed, I mentioned earlier, you might not have heard me, sorry, but it was 5 years of research work across the state of Texas, very extensive. And because we had the time and the state to work with, there were scaling studies that incorporated many, many different data sets of different groups of children. And we were able to narrow down those most sensitive items. So it's very efficient, very quick to administer, and with those immediate results. And then it provides, of course, as I said, the reports are right there on the screen. So you have immediate reports to provide to parents, to teachers, and school district personnel. So now we're going to hear from one of our, the testimony. This is Debbie Smith with New Caney ISD, and she's going to speak to her experience using TXKEA to help them meet their House Bill 3 requirements.
It's like an improvement plan that we're required to do for HB3. And so we've got some targeted areas. So I think, you know, we require teachers to print out the summary report, and they give they give one copy of that to the RTI specialist and the counselor as well, because we have to identify those kids that are at risk and different things like that. So I think it's just helped them look at the data a lot more, and not only the teachers, because in the past, I'm not sure that other people realize the importance of pre-KK 1 and 2 had on, STAR, performance. And so now that we actually are showing different people the data and the reports that we can get from it, we're more targeted in everything we do, and not just at 3rd and up, but more so even pre-K, kinder, 1st and 2nd grade.
Thank you. So here we see a quote provided by Dallas ISD's team, and that they're very pleased with how they can track students' progression in learning. In particular, they do a lot of work at particularly looking at the growth and planning around where there's risks and really targeting in their intervention. And they like the fact that they're able to do that with the reports and the progress monitoring. They also particularly talk about as I've mentioned already, the real-time results. You don't have to go to another web page. The results are right there on the screen. You can pull reports there immediately, but you can also see on the screen with this color coding system, we'll look like that in a minute, how the children actually performed. And then also those results, the thing that everybody talks about that they like the most is that it immediately groups children into those children, those triage, those children that are at risk, that you need to do some intervention activities based on those students' needs. And of course, what we're famous for is our wonderful circle activity collection. We'll look at it in a moment, and those sophisticated lesson plans that we offer to work with children individually and in small groups. So the assessments are designed to be playful and engaging. You know, those of you who know Circle and been around us for a while, you know the 3 Ps, the playful, planful, and purposeful. Well, that's what we design these assessments around that way as well. So it encourages a student level of comfort. We offer management plans to assist teachers while assessing, how to go about assessing children when they're you need to be closely monitoring or working with it, prompting. And then each assessment is very quick and easy to administer, to score. And then the interpretation, as I said, is readily apparent with those instructional implications because it's color coded, and then it gives you immediate interventions. So TXKEA covers many learning domains. As I said, it's extremely comprehensive. And within these domains are subtests that measure a multitude of skills. So here you see the language and literacy domain consists of vocabulary, letter names, and spelling. Those also serve as the TXKEA literacy screener, which is administered at the beginning of the year. It's only administered at the beginning of the year, and that's in accordance with the Texas Education Code 28.006. The language and literacy domain then also includes the rest of these here. Listening comprehension, I believe there's another click there. Listening comprehension, letter sounds, blending, decoding, and syllabication then actually make up what becomes part of the end of the year dyslexia screener. And those are in direct alignment with the dyslexia handbook. We moved assessments around to have all of the measures so you can be assured that they are covering the required domains, measures to assess for dyslexia. And then of course you also see math, science, and engineering, a really wonderful tool that you can do it, measure at the beginning of the year, executive functioning. Teachers just love, because those are skills that you want students to have and learn to develop, so that they can be attuned to learning, working memory, inhibition, attention, and so on. And then of course we cover social and emotional skills and academic motor, which is your fine and gross motor. And so we, on our CLI Engage website, you will find an alignment document that covers how each subtest is directly aligned to the TEKS for kindergarten. And then the intervention activities that we'll look at a little bit later, those activities are also then directly tied to these TEKS learning domains, along with vertically aligned with pre-K and up 1st and 2nd grade. I've been mentioning this, and here we see now how the benchmarks, on the left side, we see the benchmarks. Those are the validated cut scores that show you beginning and middle and end of the year, and the expectations for students meeting proficiency. But to improve the interpretation of those student scores, we developed these benchmarking categories. So you have the on track, monitor, and need support. If a student scores on track for a subtest, it means that they're at benchmark, which indicates they're developing as expected. A score of monitor is a measure in between, just shows that adequate product, you want to look at that monitor to ensure that adequate progress is being made. It may be a child that you're going to work with in a small group or more individualized, just to bring them to that on-track level. The score of support, however, those are children that possibly might be recommended for tier 2 support. They're not meeting the benchmark, and they would benefit from additional refined targeted skill development. Here we have a comment and quote from Dallas ISD. Again, we asked her about a favorite feature. And this is something I've already said several times, but she said particularly the ability to see scores in real time. There's no wait time. The scores are immediately there on the screen, and they're color coded. So it's like a stoplight, you know, red, yellow, green. Green means go, yellow means yield, monitor, and red means stop. Got to do something for this child. TXKEA data is helping new users such as Crystal Romero-Mueller with Tomball ISD connect the dots between assessments and standards-based reporting. Let's hear what she has to say.
As we looked at, and again, we're first-year users for the platform above pre-K. And as we've utilized these pieces of the progress monitor tool to utilize it in conjunction with other assessments we take, such as the independent reading level, or what are these pieces within the context of those skills that are predictors that can also drive the data we use to complete our report cards for our kinder as well. So these things that relative to our standards that are also part of our standards-based report card, so teachers don't have to retest and retest and retest just to make a list of the same data to fill out that information for a student.
Thank you. So here's the teacher's view of the page. When you're looking at the assessment, you speak, this is a question I'm looking at, but I will address those later. Here's what you look at when you see the assessment. When you're logged in, this is the assessment here. And this is the teacher's view of the student page. So it allows you to see the benchmark and composite scores for all students in a class. And there you see the red and green all on there. It's already, these are children who've already been scored. And here, for example, you can see the literacy screener composite results. So those are at the top, if you see vocabulary, letter names, and spelling in blue, those are the 3 pieces that make the subtests that make up the literacy screener. And then there's a composite result total. Then you can also see the different types of reports up at the top. That's where the drop down is. And that will lead you to all the different reports that you can generate right here. Then there's also, that's where the grouping tool is, where you'll see small groups. It automatically pulls all those kids into a small group, and it identifies interventions for you. And then the click over from English to Spanish is simply a switch back and forth. I know there's some districts who choose to assess children both in English and Spanish. That is certainly possible. And then there's an offline assessment tool should you have internet connectivity issues in your school or certain campuses. You can download and then administer offline as needed. And then, of course, these are the measures running across the top here. Okay, so we just spoke to the literacy screener. In the fall, this past fall, the state mandated, as I mentioned, through the text education code, required literacy screener became available. And we piloted this time efficient screener on behalf of TEA with 130 different ISDs throughout the state last January. It offers screening to evaluate, as I said, the language, which is vocabulary, emergent literacy, we're using letter names, and then emergent writing, we're using spelling. The composite scores that are generated from this that we just looked at inform the teacher if continued assessment is warranted and recommend some intervention activities for Tier 2 instruction right up at the beginning of the year. The screener takes 5 to 7 minutes to administer, and it includes a mix of one-on-one and then some small group administrations. I'm hearing okay, there we go. This is Kathy Polito, and she from La Jolla ISD, and she's discussing the benefits of the beginning of the year literacy screener.
I like the screener at the beginning of the year, that it gave you a percentage of how the kids are doing in terms of literacy. Are they on track, which reflects our pre-K classrooms, how they did when they were in pre-K. I like that feature. I like that it gives us a percentage of how the kids are, if they're on track, if they're on the monitoring or on the not on track. I like that feature of the TXKEA.
This is a vocabulary subtest being administered, which is part of the literacy screener, just to give you a little idea of what it looks like on the teacher's role.
We're going to look at some pictures, and you're going to tell me the names of the pictures that you see. Okay. What is this?
Fire.
What are these?
Drums.
So you can see we just saw a little brief moment of the teacher's providing the prompt, and she's recording the score as she's sitting side by side with the student. I think, yep, thank you. So the TXKEA literacy dyslexia screener and the dyslexia referral checklist that we provided evaluate areas considered to be important for early reading. So language-based skills, letter and letter sound knowledge, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, decoding, and spelling. The dyslexia referral checklist is something that our Dr. Assel, who's on our call today, he developed, and it's a questionnaire to build a link between direct assessment of early reading skills and classroom observations, so that you have a much more comprehensive, holistic approach to looking at all those factors if you're going to be considering a child may be at risk for dyslexia. The checklist was designed following an evaluation of the TEKS domains and, of course, the Dyslexia Handbook. So in this next slide, we're going to hear Kimberly Henderson talk about, a reading specialist with Tomball, talk about the dyslexia screener and how it facilitates more open communication around literacy development.
Looking at it as a dyslexia screener, I like that it's all in one place. And although we know it's just one piece of information, it gives us that open door for kid talk with teachers so that we can ask about reading level, ask about, is this really what you're seeing in the classroom? It kind of opens that door to those conversations.
Okay. Thank you. Here we're going to see a very brief look at what a listening comprehension subtest, how it's administered. It's part of the end of the year dyslexia screener. And it's one that's a child-facing activity. Go ahead and play that one. So in this case, the student is making the selection, they're wearing headphones, and the teacher is just ensuring the child's staying on task.
The boy broke the stick.
Okay. So on the next slide, we're just going to take a look at the reports that I've been mentioning that maximize the benefits of student progress monitoring. We know that reports need to be easy, accessible, digestible, and have multiple perspectives. So we provide the reporting provides snapshots of skill development, individual student at the group level, You can look at it by class, by campus, as well as by district levels. And then they have clear indicators to flag students of those who've fallen below those estimated benchmarks. And of course, the activities that I mentioned to support skill development, both at school and paired in tandem with parent activities as well, that you can share with parents. So again, here we are from Dallas. They really like the immediate results, the groupings and activities, so that the teacher then has support for following up with appropriate instruction. In the next slide, we're going to hear again from Crystal Romero Mueller in Tomball discussing how the user-friendly reports helped her teachers in district analyze student progress and look at some data trends as well.
As a district, one of the things we like are those color-coded charts. I mean, it's always good to be able to pull that up and for teachers to see that as that students progressing along and to be able to use that data even earlier than whenever they're completely finished. I mean, sometimes we already have kids that we're serving that we can utilize that information earlier on until we get completed with our full class. But the one thing we like as a district always is that we have that data, and as we move forward, we hope that somehow historical data can save in there so that we can see that trend data as long as we're using the tool.
Thank you. Let's take a quick look at some of the features of the student report for parents. We've worked hard on this last year to bring you a very sophisticated parent report that is easily read by families and features a quick summary of how a child performed at each wave and detailed breakdowns of the measures and skills over time. It also has links to specific activities with the family circle activity collection, so families can support skill development at home. How wonderful is that for teachers to be able to have something that they're working on in the classroom and the parent can be working on that same skill with their child at home. It's easily accessible once a student is assessed, and it's going to help you meet the mandated K-2 requirements for communicating with parents within 60 days of administration of the literacy screener. So let's take a look how teachers can use the grouping tool. The TXKEA small grouping tool divides students into instructional groups, as I mentioned, based on their assessment results. So these yellow kids are those that monitor. They're right there on the cusp, needing more support. And then, of course, these children in red are those children who've fallen well below the benchmark. The idea of this is to provide that targeted small group instruction. And you can also customize your small groups and put students with similar results in the same group, or if you want to put students in different skill levels, and you can name those specific groups. And then these hyperlinked, these are activities here. These are able to view small group lessons for skill development. So we're going to hear Debbie Smith from New Caney again talk about the data and the reports and how they've helped their district align their own goals.
My all-time favorite is the grouping tool. I mean, it takes so much work off of the teacher and really even the district because, you know, you don't have to wonder about anything. You give the assessment. If you do a really good job giving that assessment and, you know, you give it the way that it's designed to be administered, and you push that grouping tool, everything's there for you. I mean, it tells you which kids are having trouble with letter knowledge, which are having trouble with math or phonemic awareness, all of those things. And then not only that, the intervention is like built right in.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Jennifer Roach of Goose Creek Consolidated ISD about how the small grouping tool with the built-in interventions has helped their district.
The thing that we really like the most for MOI is the ability to group the students. And then TXKEA also has intervention activities that you can do with those small groups. So that's been a great addition too, just to be able to say, here's an issue with a group of kids, and here is an intervention you can use right here, just point and click all in one place. That's been really helpful.
Great. So here is an example of a small group of students. You see on the left, that's from the small grouping tool. And this, as you see, one of the hyperlink down below is beginning sounds. And so we're going to take a look at what that activity looks like when you go to that link, and it will pull up this beginning sound switcheroo activity. And each activity, each intervention here that we see, they have a learning objective, they have the materials, the grade level, alignment to the TEKS. It's vertically lined all the way, pre-K, first grade. It's a gradual release model. So you see first it's introduced in child-friendly terms, then a guided practice and modeling it out first. You know, teachers often make the mistake of just starting with children into it. You model it first, explain what the expectations are, and then offer guided practice and scaffolding until you see mastery, and then you summarize the activity. There's extension activities that you need to challenge, and the scaffoldings, you have both upward and downward scaffolding, so you really, really individualize to students. We're going to play just a little short snippet. Many of these have these exemplar videos included in a real classroom with a real teacher, so you can see what it looks like. I know coaches like to use this too to support.
Today we are going to practice beginning sounds. We've talked a lot about beginning sounds, and we're going to play another activity, a game where we get to practice beginning sounds. Now, I know it's so exciting, isn't it? We are going to use a poem. I have a little poem right here, and I'm going to show you what to do, but first I'm going to read you the poem, okay?
So she's modeling tracking print. Now we have Mary Jane Bowman with Grand Prairie ISD, and she's going to talk about student interventions and parent activities and how that circle activity collection has supported growth in their district.
The other part that I like about the TXKEA is that once a deficit is identified for a given student, there's a direct relation to the intervention. Like the resources are right there in the system, and can't forget about the parent piece as well, because especially again in this pandemic, the home is really an integral part of our partnership with our youngest learners.
Exactly. Thank you. So as you just saw, the small grouping tool directed the teacher to a link in intervention. This is the collection, what it looks like online on the Engage platform, and you can look at specific activities related to a grade level. Activities are in English or Spanish, and as I said, they're all tied to TEKS and then upward and downward scaffolding. I mentioned the extensive family engagement resources. They make the most of procedures you already have in place, like progress monitoring or homework assignments, parent-teacher conferences, open houses. There is so much there, supporting families in better understanding, with also being responsive with their own children's development in developing appropriate activities and skill development. So let's see how all of these that we've talked about, as was just mentioned, that remote setting that we are in currently, and we don't know how extended that may be. We immediately responded to the pandemic with immediately developing a remote administration of TXKEA. We've had it available all year, and it's designed to help you still offer comprehensive training, teacher guides, remote lesson plans, and remote family engagement resources. So we have such things as there's a sample email to parents in English and Spanish. There's a teacher preparation checklist of all the things they need to consider. There's handouts for parents to help them better understand the assessment with child-friendly definitions, or family-friendly definitions rather, of the assessment measures. And teachers are given a script on how to describe each measure being assessed, why it's assessed in family-friendly language. And then you'll also find some visual schedules for students to help them stay on task. So let's take a look at this next, and we'll see just how it can be administered online remotely.
I've already scheduled the remote assessment time with my student and his parent.
I'm going to log into CLI Engage and click on the remote assessment. Then I will click on the score and guidelines for this assessment so I can reference the acceptable answers. Now I'm going to connect with my student and his parent through Zoom and will share my screen with them. Hi Yusuf, I'm so happy to see you today. Can you see and hear me?
Yes,
Can you tell me who's with you?
my mom.
Well, hi Mom, I'm so glad you guys could join us. Go ahead and get started. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the color green on your screen. Awesome. All right, so what is this?
A flamingo.
And what is this?
I don't know.
What is this?
Picnic basket.
Okay, thank you. We're going to now hear Dr. Travis Armstrong, the Director of Early Learning in Wichita Falls ISD. He's going to share his thoughts on TXKEA and the remote assessment during the pandemic.
Keeping teacher sanity, using an assessment that is teacher friendly, especially in the middle of a pandemic and something we've never experienced before, was huge. Also having something that can be administered remotely to students was huge, because we had students at home and of course we gave them that option in our district, and that option is still on the table. If TEA recommends it as best practice, we're going to do it. And so we had students who are receiving virtual instruction from home, and most of the campuses said, hey, you know, parents, if you wouldn't mind bringing your child up here in a safe, sanitized environment for us to give the assessment to them, we would love for you to do that. But then we had some parents that said, no, we're at home because we're concerned and we're not coming up to the school. And so TXKEA helped us climb over those hills now.
Thank you. And we're also now going to hear Brianne Carberry from Tomball ISD, and she's going to talk about how the data translates well between remote and face-to-face assessment as well.
Know that it's different whether we're testing a student virtually or testing a student face-to-face. It is nice at the district level to be able to somewhat compare apples to apples, because we're able to utilize the same assessment. And I think that you guys changing TXKEA to make it available for us to utilize for virtual kids was super beneficial. When we look at a district data as a whole, knowing that they all take the same assessment, and not all of our assessments were able to, you know, punt in that way. And so I think that on a global level helps us out.
Thank you. We have the opportunity to learn to get training on TXKEA through these training courses. They're all certificate-bearing CPE courses. There's a brief introduction course. There's one on administering it itself, and you can use the assessment practice area for that. And then there's one on understanding the reports. And then there's a nice training course just for administrators, for school principals and others who want to get an understanding of KEA. And this is all, that's that part of that continuous improvement. It's all right there on the platform for you. Jennifer Roach from Goose Creek ISD, Consolidated ISD, is going to talk about the professional learning resources.
I think that was a pivotal part of making the transition smooth. We coupled the CLI webinars with also in-district virtual trainings where we walked through demo students and just showed them how to do it, you know, one-on-one with groups of teachers. And I think the teachers really felt well prepared for what it was going to look like when they had students in front of them to do the assessment.
And then also Mary Jane Bowman with Grand Prairie ISD, she utilized the TXKEA training to ensure that teachers and coaches both in her district gather strong, reliable data.
And it was also available at all times. Like, we didn't have to wait for a scheduled webinar. And we have instructional coaches, and in some campuses, depending on size, we have 2. And they are the bridge from the district to the campus. And so they were responsible for supporting your teachers on how to administer, because it wasn't just about a checkbox administering the CLI Engage. We wanted the reliable data. We wanted valid data on our youngest learners, because especially in this district, which I'm sure is true for the other district, but definitely for our district, we have data that indicated that where our breakdown is, if we have ever any student concerns and breakdown and deficits, we can see it in kinder. And if we are not able to close the gap, we follow those students until they get to 5th grade in middle school. And when we backtrack where we see where the deficit started or the hole in the gap occurred is in kinder. And so we can't spend all of this money trying to get kids ready for the STAR test. We have to be able to invest it at this level, provide them what they need, and be able to go ahead and get them to the level that they need to be, in keeping in mind, obviously, the developmental nature of our 4 and 5-year-olds as well. And but in order to be able to do that, we had to have valid data that indicated, and not even included, communication with our families, because they didn't want to see their kids struggling at home when they're there. And so their natural inclination is, oh, my child is struggling, let me help them. And that is the last thing we need when we're trying to figure out exactly where a student is, so that we can deliver instruction with specificity. And
okay, and we also have training facilitation guides, which she alluded to, that their literacy coaches use, that are all full of tips and handouts, and the trainer can offer the certificates. And then on to the next one, we have Stephanie Parsons from Wichita Falls. She's the kindergarten specialist, and she talks about how she's tailored the professional learning for the teachers she serves by utilizing the training resources and the certificate-bearing eCircle coursework, which is a whole set of courses around domains such as letter knowledge and phonological awareness and so on. Let's hear what she has to say.
When we knew we were going to be doing TXKEA, we went through the training of all the training on that is offered on CLI about TXKEA. So definitely. And I also use it as with new teachers. We just started, I mean, it's the eCircle courses, but classroom management, we just went over some of the classroom management things in that as well. So yes, it is used here in the district.
Great. We also have these on-demand webinars to support you and your staff by implementing developmentally appropriate instruction practices, whether it be analyzing data or understanding dyslexia screening, or understanding the implications of cognitive biases on assessment instruction. There's lots and lots of webinars that are already there, and you can earn certificate bearing as well for these with CPE hours. All you need is a CLI Engage account. We have an assessment practice area that can be used to support your training needs. There's demo students, so you can go ahead and practice it yourself. And then there's some scored students that you can generate some reports and try it all out. You can go on and try that feature now on any of the assessments. We're going to hear Jennifer Roach from Goose Creek Consolidated again talk about her recommendations for the practice area in the webinars. There you go.
I think if another district asked us about TXKEA, we would just encourage them to lean in, watch the webinars, ask lots of questions, use the demo feature. I think it's so helpful to be able to go through that and have a demo student. So use the demo feature and just give TXKEA a chance. We've been really pleased with it.
Thank you. And go on to the next one.
I think my favorite part of TXKEA was.
Thank you. Ms. Henderson.
It was nice that as you go along, it's just 2 clicks. It's either right or wrong. You click the button, and like Ms. Potter said, it scores it all for you and color codes it all for you right there at the same time.
Thank you. And then, of course, we have all kinds of assistance for you. We have a help ticket system, but we also have chat and office hours available where the client support analyst team, there's I believe 7 of them now, and they are available during from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. to offer support for your help tickets, as well as office hours that you can just do a quick click in on Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays and get immediate face-to-face assistance. We also have an extensive how-to guide collection. And if you just want to learn a little bit about everything I've talked about, there's a little button on here called Take a Tour, where you can click on that and watch a short video that acquaints you with everything that's on this platform. Okay, and finally, we're going to hear one more word from Dr. Travis Armstrong about CLI and continuous support of families and children.
Are teachers going to enjoy this? Or are teachers going to be able to administer this assessment, for example, without pulling out their hair? And so TXKEA checked that box for us, that teachers loved it. Ms. Parsons, who's a seasoned kindergarten teacher and a curriculum specialist. What I like about this is if it has the CLI name, it's Children's Learning Institute, the University of Texas Health Science Center, and the collaborative research effort that's gone behind finding resources for educators and for parents, specifically for early childhood and early childhood education. All of that backing has gone into this development of this assessment. It's offered free to the districts. And that partnership with TEA and collaborative efforts with TEA is important. So having having the assistance, the fact that you've reached out to us to say, can we interview you? Can we find out what's going well and what do we need to work on? We don't get that from other, we don't necessarily get that from other assessments and other resources. So I think that's important. There are people that are trying to make some money, and then there's people who are trying to make the world a little bit of a better place. And I think that CLI is one of those organizations. So that's crucial to consider.
Thank you. I've got an exciting thing to tell you. We recently took a hand-picked group of subject matter experts in early childhood, knowledgeable on CLI Engage, to help support district goals. They're Texas educators just like you, coming out of classrooms or administrators, and they formed our beloved data squad. And I want to always say a little trumpet. The data squad's purpose is to better support your understanding of data evaluation, help you do data analysis support, instructional planning using data. And you've seen some of our series of webinars, perhaps the one on cognitive bias, one on creating a data culture on your campus, different ones on small group that we're putting out. We're on social media now. We're doing all kinds of things. And I'm pleased to announce that towards the end of this month, we'll be opening office hours for the data squad as well. So that will be to help particularly support targeted data evaluation and analysis support for you. Then we also, this is just what the dashboard looks like, these little banners, but that screening progress monitoring, that red banner is where you're going to find always your TXKEA. But here's all those components we've talked about. And we didn't even talk about other things such as quality improvement tools and TechPad and other things. But as you can see, it's extremely comprehensive platform, but designed to be a continuous improvement feedback loop so that all of these work together for best data-driven decision making. And finally, we know besides the chat and questions that we might have today that we're going to answer, this is an email, TXKEA@uth.tmc.edu, where you can contact us and with more specific questions or anything that you need to know. And as well as if there's something you'd like a little bit more for your district, our data squad team is prepared to do some additional trainings for you if you need it. Not train, you've got all the training on the online, but if you need some better understandings or overviews and such, we're prepared to provide that for you as well, or through the ESCs. We've done that in several recent cases as well. So I'm wrapping that up, Natalie, and we will be ready to address questions.
Thank you so much. Is my audio working okay?
Yeah.
Woohoo, what a win. So actually, there weren't too many questions, and the ones that were in there did already get addressed. So, just want to let our participants know, those of you who are viewing this presentation, now's your time to to get to talk to the vendor. It's really exciting that we get to have this kind of interaction with them. So I encourage you to go ahead and pop your questions in if you haven't already. Looks like one came in. It says, for the dyslexia screener, do you just do the EOY screener? And I can answer that, or Colleen, if you want to answer that.
Or I'll send it to Mike if he wants to answer it.
That's true.
So let me make sure we have the terminology straight. So it's the dyslexia screener. Those are selected subtests that are done at the end of the year that feed the dyslexia screener. The other thing that you do at the end of the year is the dyslexia referral checklist, or you can do at the end of the year. So it's a little bit different. So basically your dyslexia portion is a smaller hunk of the entire TXKEA. So TXKEA, they have all the subtests going every time point, MOI, BOI, EOI. And then the dyslexia screener is just smaller at the end.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And can I add to that is in requirement, meeting the requirements that all kindergartners are assessed for dyslexia at the end of the year.
And Cynthia, who asked the question that you all just answered, she just wanted clarification. She says, so is this different than the EOY? Is the dyslexia screener different than the EOY?
The content is the same content that would be in the end of the Y screener. However, it's packaged a little bit differently, so it shows up on the dashboard differently, so you know it's clumped together as a dyslexia screener, so you're meeting those requirements. If you go further down the taskbar or the engaged taskbar, that's where you're going to see all the other subtests. So these are subdivided in a little section. I forgot the color. What is it? Blue or purple or something like that?
It's blue.
It's blue, so that people can kind of say, oh, if we want to meet all the dyslexia criteria, these are the things we need to be doing right now. Versus things like social emotional and self-reg and things like that. It's going to clump them together on the dashboard so it's easier to track. But the content is essentially the same.
All right. And Angie asks, so do you give both the EOY and the screener? Well, Angie, I'm going to answer part of this question. So for kindergarten, we don't collect that EOY raw data. So it really, of course, it's best practice. I think it's always a good idea to conduct your assessments at least 3 times a year using a tool like this. So yes, you would be giving the dyslexia screener. It's a local decision how you all want to implement that EOY at the end. And if anything, the CLI team wants to add, that's fine too.
That's good.
All right. And another good question. What devices do teachers use to input responses?
Colleen, you want to go? I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, it needs to be on a laptop, a desktop, or we've gone down the tablets, but it has to be a big tablet. It doesn't do well on tablets smaller than what, 7 inches or something like that?
And,
right. And also not on iPads because of the way audio files advance.
Android tablets, 7 inches or larger.
It works on Google Chrome, all of those, yes.
There was a question, Natalie, earlier about a potential deadline for selecting your kindergarten screener for next year. There is not an official deadline. We would recommend that you try to make the decision fairly early on, just to allow you to get as much time as possible to prepare your team for implementation, so you could get all the background information you need about the assessment tool, about the platform, get everyone trained and ready to go, so it's not so rushed at the last second. Again, that being said, there is no official deadline for making that choice.
Long story short, the sooner the better though, because you're able to set up your teachers for success and therefore your students. And so we know that when teachers feel prepared and trained and they've played around the assessment practice area, they are much more confident and trusting of those results that they get with the children. So they're not figuring it out right at the end. That can be really stressful. Speaking as a teacher who did that a few times. let's see. Somebody is asking, in regards to my question earlier, will reports be gone from the system after each year? I might have missed this earlier if it was answered. So I think what they're talking about, CLI, is where does the data go in the CLI system after the year ends?
I'm not sure if Jennifer Lindley's on there, but I'll just go ahead and answer that we house your data, but you own your data. So at the end of the school year, we ask you to download all of your data so that you can continue to maintain it. We do archive the student results export for every single district and all of the raw data on all students. If that makes sense to you.
There was another question asking how long does it take to administer the TXKEA?
It was designed to take about 45 minutes. That's what the funders wanted, so they could be no longer than 45 minutes. Most people, once kids get comfortable with it and teachers get comfortable, it's probably, if you did every part, it's running about 45 to 50 minutes, depending on the child. But most districts, I'll tell you, most districts, they make a decision as a group. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. These to satisfy TEA requirements. This is because we're interested. So it's not, most folks aren't doing every subtest that there is. I mean, because it's a long list of different subtests because they wanted it comprehensive. So and then I think it's a district decision of which subtests they do over time, and whether or not I would agree with a kid doing all TXKEA subtests over each time. I would say probably not. I don't think it serves that much of a purpose unless you're using it, unless you have a kid with a delay. So if a kid has, if one child is struggling earlier, you want to do progress report monitoring on that child. If he's saying difficulty with emotion regulation, well, I may only do that questionnaire one time in the beginning if everything's fine. But if a kid's struggling in that area, I'd probably transfer that and do the middle of the year and end of the year assessments as well, just so I could track the progress over time.
That's actually a really great part of the tool, is that, you have all of these subtests available to you that are sensitive to risk in a certain way. And what's nice is that, it really is a local decision outside of language and literacy, what you all really want to progress monitor. But for those kids that, when they walk into your classroom, you're like, I'm going to keep my eye on them because I can expect that something may happen here, or that I may miss something. You have those opportunities to continue to assess them throughout the year and show progress, or perhaps even regression if it's happening. Somebody asked a great question. Are there literacy screeners and dyslexia screeners for first and second grade? So good time to talk about TPRI and TEHAS-LA.
You muted, Colleen.
I was actually deferring to you to talk about the dyslexia referral checklist for first and second grade.
Well, yeah, I mean, those tools are available from us, but also on our platform for first and second grade, we have the TPRI TEHAS-LA. Those assessments were developed at CLI or UT Health in the mid 90s, early 2000s by a group of researchers. And we got permission to extend those for our first and second grade as we're building out our more content that was just specific to us. So TPRI TEHAS-LA is there. The whole things are there. It's a good option for people, but I can tell you that we are at the point where we're kind of in the middle of first grade validation work that got pushed back because of COVID. But eventually we're shooting to have all of our CLI developed products from pre-K through second grade that all have the same feel and things like that. And they all the same artwork, same fonts and things like that. So, but as a stopgap measure, and then a darn good one, the TPRI TEHAS-LA is in their full forms that districts can choose to use.
And additionally, we also have a dyslexia referral checklist that was developed for first and second grade so that you have that a comprehensive, again, holistic look at both quantitative assessments and qualitative data from observations that are all put together to consider whether the child is at risk. Natalie, was there somebody who was asking to look at what the dyslexia screener looks like? I thought I saw something like that.
Yeah, I think there was a question about where can they find it, and I believe it was answered. But if you'd like to do a quick demo, that's fine for those of you who want to stay a little bit later. But it's 4 o'clock, and yeah, so you know, we're happy to stay a little bit later for those of you who have any lingering questions. But I just want to thank you all for joining before everyone kind of goes off and does whatever they do on a Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Well, I'm sorry. What we can do is we'll find that question and I'll send that information directly to the individual then. Thank you.
Okay, great. And just remember, everybody, we do have an FAQ coming along with this recording. So we have a bank of all these questions. We have them all set in case I missed anything. And then we'll be able to send that CLI's way and they can answer them for you.
To echo what Natalie had said, we're more than willing to hang out here as long as you all need us and as long as the CLI folks are able to do so and get any questions answered right now that we can. So if you've got anything on your mind, now's a great time to share it.
And I'm dropping our links in there for CLI Engage and for our data-driven instruction website as well. This was really helpful. Donna Smith, if you're still wondering, I believe you're wondering about the dyslexia checklist. If you're still here, perhaps CLI can show that to you.
Well, I can share the screen then.
Great.
And I'll share the link.
I think, am I sharing it now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would suggest, Donna, if you have an account, you can go and look through your district, but otherwise one of the quickest places is once you've logged in, go to the assessment practice area. I did want to mention, Donna, if you don't have an account, all public schools and open charter enrollment schools have access to CLI Engage. Whether you choose to use the KEA assessment, you may want to use other resources on the platform. We can set you up with an account. So email TXKEA, that email we gave you, and we'll get you set up. If you go to the assessment practice area, and then you'll locate TXKEA, it's automatically defaults to wave 1. You see here in blue, the literacy screener, those are grouped together, and then this purple identifies the literacy screening composite score. As we said, wave 3, which is the same as EOY, end of year, is where you will find the dyslexia screening tool. And so that, as Mike was pointing out, they're all in blue. So, and then the dyslexia screening results are here in purple. And this is followed by the dyslexia referral checklist. And you launch it here, and then you're going to fill it out. You can find also much more about dyslexia here up at the top where it says tools and resources and the dyslexia referral checklist. And that will take you to video training about the dyslexia screener and the dyslexia referral checklist, the individual referral checklist for each grade level, and a breakdown of how it was developed and what it focuses on. So if you don't have an account, let us know. That's the best way to get you started in getting familiar with it. Is there anything else I can show while I'm looking at it? Anybody want to?
I don't see any other questions that came in. I anticipated quite a few questions around dyslexia just because it's going to be that time of year soon. So, right. But we will send over any questions that may have been missed. We'll send them all over to CLI Engage. They will answer them for us. We'll keep this posted on our website that we dropped into the comments box. But thank you all very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, great rest of your week, and a good weekend.